And we are live.
We are live. Good morning, David. How are
Good
you?
morning. Good morning. Good morning. We are live on Texas TV, on here on Instagram at Modeling Agent, and we're streaming across our other platforms on Twitter, Networks Manager, and Facebook.
All right, so we have a issue on uh, our TV stations here. Do you see that
I don't.
notification?
I don't see it. Are you seeing it?
I am.
Okay.
Hmm. Oh, it's working. It's working now. It just told me we're live. Okay.
Perfect.
Good morning, Texas. If you didn't get the first minute or so, we're trying to figure out. It gave us a warning, guys. There's a problem with your feed into the network. So I'm glad it worked out. There is a lot going on in the world, as everyone knows, right? And in finance, I was just trying to keep up yesterday. Of course, we had a nice dip, like we talked about, was going to happen, right? Whether or not, whatever. And of course, Litecoin is pumping. Bitcoin
Wow.
is having a nice rebound. I know. Wow, is right, right? It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. Let me tell you. And then, of course, with the world situation and everything that we have going on, it's all pretty amazing too. Let's see here, and I need to start this over here. Boom, and then I gotta cut this thing. Okay, Instagram's funny. So Instagram, you got to stream on Instagram, then you got to go live, and then you got to tell it to go live. And like I don't have enough to think about as I'm going live. Go over there, push live on Instagram. Instagram, you guys got to fix that. Meta, Zuckerberg, it's time to come
Yeah.
into the 21st century.
The time of convenience.
I mean, another button, guys. I mean, come on. So we have Matt joining us in a few minutes as well. He has some exciting stuff to talk about. I really think, almost no matter what at this point, that, like we've kind of said, I mean, there's going to be some pullbacks, but everything is going to go up. It's like, I remember a couple of years ago, David, and people would ask me, they'd say, why, Bruce, how do I know what to buy? How do I know what to buy? No, it's a bull market. Just buy, okay? Just buy. And
Right.
of course, Luna. Oh gosh, I rode that Luna coin up the charts. It was really a fun, really fun coin for us. But that was really something else as well. So any of these assets. And if we have time today, I'm going to go through how to buy some crypto, how to buy some normal crypto with your credit card without registering anywhere. Anywhere. You just go over there and you just buy it. Pretty interesting stuff. So if we have time, we're going to go through that. I wanted to, there's a few things, of course, I want to talk about today, including, of course, we have the central bank structure, the money printing that goes on. But I'm going to go over some of the main things here that we're looking at. The Asian markets are up. The Nikkei is up a point, which is pretty good for them. The Hang Seng is up almost 2 points. The Kospi is up half a percentage point. Futures are up as I was looking last night. Let me just look here. Now, if the futures are up, that is the Dow futures are up. I mean, this was like a golden indicator for me when I was really trading hard all the time. And you can go over to investor.com and see. So the Dow futures are actually flat, but they were down yesterday. And so it's actually, you have a nice chart moving up here. I guess I can show that real quick. Oh, here we go. Too many tabs. Okay. So the Dow futures usually, even if they're flat, that is going to be, or that may be an uptrend. When they're down, unless they're a fake out, which does happen, I would say quite often we have a fake out, right? And that can go like that. So one of the ways, well, first of all, let's see here. We're pumping? Are we pumping? Bitcoin's up 43,133. It's up over 1%. I think that means that we should pump it up. What do you think?
Go and
Should we pump it up? Pump it up. You gotta pump it up. Now they do this chart. They do this chart every year. It's not even every year. We have a cycle in Bitcoin and other cryptos like Bitcoin, like Global Boost, like Litecoin, where we have our halving every 4 years or so. And that halving is like a catalyst to what goes on. And so the supply of Bitcoin that's being minted in a Global Boost, and I'm not sure of the actual time for Litecoin, but they just halved. I think they already have. So this time leading up to the halving point where they cut the supply in half, they're minting, you get a nice pump up, and then it's really even after that too that you get a nice pump up that happens. So anyway, let's celebrate the pump.
Zero.
Here we are. Down. Going from 69, sitting here at 49. Oh, then we're going. Everyone's getting liquidated. All over. Is it? We're gonna pump again. Is it over? It holds. That's such a loss. Wait.
Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. Don't you got to pump it up. Don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up. To pump it up, don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know, pump it up. You got to pump it up,
Continuité de rythme.
It never gets old.
Yeah.
It never gets old. And I'll tell you what, I've never seen anything pump like Bitcoin or Global Boost. Actually, Global Boost just pumps really hard. Litecoin. You know, these cryptos, guys, there is a finite supply. And that's what these things are ruled by math. Okay. They're unseizable, they're unfreezable, they're unstoppable. And I talk about that over and over again. And after Matt, we're going to have Matt first, and then I'm going to play a little bit of the history of the central banking system here in the U.S. and why you're getting just robbed blind by the central bank. And the central bank isn't even the government. It's a private group of people, and they're printing money out of control. They're printing all this money, and they're stealing it from you. They're stealing it from you. They're stealing your money. Your hard-earned money. And it's kind of an interesting situation because they're not even stealing. It's like they're stealing your money, but people don't even get it. They're stealing your energy. They're stealing your time. My good friend Nick Spanos, who I have our interview from Toronto queued up as well. We might play that. It was a great interview. But he says, a lot of the stuff I say, he beat me to it. Because I would have said this too. They say that time is money. Well, if time is money, then every time they print money, they're stealing time from you.
Yeah. This is
Right.
a great analogy. Yes.
Yeah. They're stealing your time. They're not only stealing your money and your energy and your value, they're stealing your time. The most precious, the most valuable commodity in the world.
Yeah, it's true. After 20 years of work and your hard-earned savings, and then they pump the extra funds into the system, and then your money's worth half of what it was, and you don't have the time to make it back.
You don't have the time to make it back. David, it's a really good way of saying it. I mean, it's just absolute, guys. If once everybody starts to understand, I'm not even going to say if, I'm going to say once, because everyone is starting to get it. You're starting to get it.
It's absolutely true. You can see the amount of people that are understanding what is going on now that we're all connected on the internet here.
Can't stop it here. So here's the history of the central bank in the United States. I'm going to go ahead and play it. I can't wait. I'm going to play this. And then, of course, there's all the stuff I talk about. But, you know, this is the serious stuff, guys. Okay. This is why we can't ever pay off the federal debt.
So what is a central bank? A central bank is an institution that produces the currency of an entire nation. Based on historical precedent, two specific powers are inherent in central banking practice: the control of interest rates and the control of the money supply, or inflation. The central bank does not simply supply a government's economy with money, it loans it to them at interest. Then, through the use of increasing and decreasing the supply of money, the central bank regulates the value of the currency being issued. It is critical to understand that the entire structure of this system can only produce one thing in the long run: debt. It doesn't take a lot of ingenuity to figure this scam out. For every single dollar produced by the central bank is loaned at interest. That means every single dollar produced is actually the dollar plus a certain percent of debt based on that dollar. Since the central bank has the monopoly over the production of the currency for the entire country, and they loan each dollar out with immediate debt attached to it, where does the money to pay for the debt come from? It can only come from the central bank again, which means the central bank has to perpetually increase its money supply to temporarily cover the outstanding debt created, which in turn, since that new money is loaned out at interest as well, creates even more debt. The end result of this system without fail is slavery, for it is impossible for the government and thus the public to ever come out of the self-generating debt. At this time, the dominant families in the banking and business world were the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Warburgs, the Rothschilds. And in the early 1900s, they sought to push once again legislation to create another central bank. However, they knew the government and public were very weary of such an institution, so they needed to create an incident to affect public opinion. So, J.P. Morgan, publicly considered a financial luminary at the time, exploited his mass influence by publishing rumors that a prominent bank in New York was insolvent or bankrupt. Morgan knew this would cause mass hysteria, which would affect other banks as well. And it did. The public, in fear of losing their deposits, immediately began mass withdrawals. Consequently, the banks were forced to call in their loans, causing the recipients to sell their property, and thus a spiral of bankruptcies, repossessions, and turmoil emerged. Putting the pieces together a few years later, Frederick Allen of Life magazine wrote, "The Morgan interests took advantage to precipitate the panic, guiding it shrewdly as it progressed." Unaware of the fraud, the Panic of 1907 led to a congressional investigation headed by Senator Nelson Aldrich, who had intimate ties to the banking cartels and later became part of the Rockefeller family through marriage. The commission, led by Aldrich, recommended a central bank should be implemented so a panic like 1907 could never happen again. And in 1913, with heavy political sponsorship by the bankers, Woodrow Wilson became president, having already agreed to sign the Federal Reserve Act in exchange for campaign support. And 2 days before Christmas, when most of Congress was at home with their families, the Federal Reserve Act was voted in, and Wilson in turn made it law. A world banking system was being set up here, a superstate controlled by international bankers, acting together to enslave the world for their own pleasure. The Fed has usurped the government. Now, the public was told that the Federal Reserve System was an economic stabilizer, and inflation and economic crises were a thing of the past. Well, as history has shown, nothing is further from the truth. The fact is, the international bankers now had a streamlined machine to expand their personal ambitions. For example, from 1914 to 1919, the Fed increased the money supply by nearly 100%, resulting in extensive loans to small banks and the public. Then, in 1920, the Fed called in mass percentages of the outstanding money supply, thus resulting in the supporting banks having to call in huge numbers of loans, and just like 1907, bank runs, bankruptcy, and collapse occurred. Over 5,400 competitive banks outside of the Federal Reserve System collapsed, further consolidating the monopoly of a small group of international bankers. Privy to this crime, Congressman Lindbergh stepped up and said in 1921, "Under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created. The present panic is the first scientifically created one, worked out as we figure a mathematical equation." However, the panic of 1920 was just a warm-up. From 1921 to 1929, the Fed again increased the money supply, resulting once again in extensive loans to the public and banks. There was also a fairly new type of loan called a margin loan in the stock market. Very simply, the margin loan allowed an investor to put down only 10% of a stock's price, with the other 90% being loaned through the broker. In other words, a person could own $1,000 worth of stock with only $100 down. However, there was a catch to this loan. It could be called in at any time and had to be paid within 24 hours. This is termed a margin call, and the typical result of a margin call is the selling of the stock purchased with the loan. So, a few months before October in 1929, J.D. Rockefeller, Bernard Baruch, and other insiders quietly exited the market. And on October 24, 1929, the New York financiers who furnished the margin loans started calling them in masse. This sparked an instantaneous, massive sell-off in the market, for everyone had to cover the margin loans. It then triggered mass bank runs for the same reason, in turn collapsing over 16,000 banks, enabling the conspiring international bankers to not only buy up rival banks at a discount, but to also buy up whole corporations at pennies on the dollar. It was the greatest robbery in American history. But that didn't stop there. Rather than expanding the money supply in order to recover from this economic collapse, the Fed actually contracted it, fueling one of the largest depressions in history.
Unbelievable. Guys, this is
Seriously.
the scam. This is the scam of our lifetime. It's the scam of our country's history. Around the world. Like, I was like, I've been saying this stuff for years, but when you get a short video like that just like hammers home on the different things and how they collapsed everything, and then you look at how they've collapsed everything over the last couple of years. They purposely collapsed it. Yellen went on TV and said, she said that their unemployment wasn't high enough yet. It wasn't high enough yet. You guys haven't suffered enough yet. We haven't taken enough money from you guys. And so, everybody's like, oh, we're wealthy or this and that and the other. Guys, I mean, this is rough. This is rough. And so we're going to continue to hammer on that. The way out of this, guys, a way out of it is through coins, digital blockchains that are ruled by math. And I'm not talking about CBDCs. Nick Spanos and I spoke about that in Toronto. It was an interesting interview as I was watching it last night. If we don't use the decentralized blockchain to free ourselves, we're going to be imprisoned by the centralized blockchains.
Yes.
Anyway,
Exactly.
we're going to go back to that in a minute. Let's bring on our good friend, Matt. Mr. Dixon.
Bruce, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
Very well, thank you. And I'm going into my usual screen share, entire screen. Click on that and share, and hopefully you can see my screen.
It's loading up. Oh, look at this. I love these charts. Yeah, everyone loves this stuff. It's great to have, you emotional markets are emotional, right? And so it's great to break it down in charts and your Elliott waves and everything like this, so that people can really start to take these things out. Matt is, of course, the founder of Eve ratings platform, and they do an amazing job. Take it away, sir.
Thank you. So yeah, Eve is doing an amazing job, and it's going to get even better. So we're going to be introducing some major upgrades in the new year. And as you said, the market is, well, it's interesting to say the least. I went on CNBC a couple of years ago, and they asked me about what I expected for the future. And I did expect, there to be some major fallout in the markets. And I don't think crypto will be immune initially. But I do think following a major fallout, and I think that's still coming, and we'll touch on that in the chart, but following a major fallout where crypto will fall initially as well, I expect, I think that Bitcoin will rise as the new digital gold. So when other assets are still in the doldrums and are fallen flat, I think that people will realize that Bitcoin is that store of value, the real digital gold. And as you say, it's decentralized. It's untouchable. And so I think Bitcoin will rise, and obviously a lot of cryptos with it. But I wanted to there's always two sides to every story. And for me as a trader, I've been trading for many, many years. And I think it's important to see the two sides. And I use what's called risk reward. So I don't always trade to the upside or to the downside. But what I do is try to make sure that whichever way I'm trading, my downside is limited and my upside is larger than my downside. So markets don't go in a straight line. We're hoping crypto is going to rally, and it certainly rallied beautifully as expected through this Christmas period. This was anticipated, and we talked about it. We've talked about it over weeks past, that we expect a Christmas rally. And I'd be interested to hear your views as well. This is going to be an election year, isn't it, coming up? So what's going to happen to the markets with the elections and the potential outcomes there? So I'll let Bruce come in on that. But I'll just run through some charts very quickly to give the potential other side to the markets at the moment. So looking at SPX here, really, the S&P 500. So you'll all be very familiar with that. And this is using what's called Wave Basis, and it's a New York-based Elliott Wave platform, automated Elliott Wave platform. So again, no human input whatsoever. It's based on Elliott Wave rules. And I actually do all of my own Elliott Wave charts, but I just sometimes look at this because it's always good to get a second opinion and just see what's happening, because there are two sides to every story, as I say, and you can actually set this up to look at the positive or the negative side, which is why trading risk reward is so important. But here we have the all-time high on the S&P 500, which came in June 2022. And since that, we've had a move down, which it's got labeled here as wave 1, which means that they're saying the impulsive direction is downwards. That means at the moment, that was the all-time high, and they're saying that the market has turned. But actually, we're very close to what's called invalidation. If the price now, and we're very close because the all-time high was somewhere around 4,800, 4,819, somewhere around there. And you can see right now we're 47.74 on the S&P 500. So if we go above that previous high, that means this wave count is invalidated. But what I love about this, it gives you amazing risk reward. If you wanted to trade to the short side, then the stop loss can be really close, just above that previous all-time high, but massive potential downside. So you might lose the trade. And any good trader will lose trades because they set their stop losses and they'll get hit occasionally. But that's not a problem because you're actually looking at the longer run. As long as you get more wins than losses, and as long as your wins are bigger than your losses, then you're in the money and you're a proper trader. So take those losses where you need to take them. But if this does reverse here, potentially we're looking at very close to an all-time high on the market previously, and looking at a turning point toward the downside. So that would be negative risk assets. Cryptocurrency are risk assets. And so potentially we could be looking at some downside, but I'm only saying potentially because nobody knows the future. And that's why, again, use risk reward. But I'm just looking at the other side of the coin here. We've been talking really positively about the outlook for cryptos, but let's just look at the potential downside. So that's S&P 500. I'll run through these really quickly because I don't want to go too heavily into them. But we looked at XRP, didn't we? And XRP potentially, we've got a previous high there, and basically keep going for lower lows, and that's an A down, B up, and looking for potentially a C down, which would take us to new lows below the previous low. And we've got an A down, a B up. The next wave would be a C down. So potentially we're looking at potentially downside. And I keep saying potentially, nobody knows the future, but you've got to keep in mind all the potential possibilities. There's one chart I love here that many traders will be aware of, the relationship between the pound and the dollar. It used to be called cable. That's what many traders know it as. And we saw that this was the high that we had just before the Brexit vote. If you remember, Britain voted to come out of Europe. And when we got that Brexit vote, following that, basically the pound collapsed and the dollar got stronger all the way down to 103. We got, wasn't it? Was it last year sometime we got 103?
It was crazy.
Yeah. But I did say at the time, I don't think that's the all-time low for the pound. The dollar is going to get mighty strong. So everybody talking about demise of the dollar, Bruce, for one, I don't think we're there yet. Yes, the dollar's days may be numbered, but I think there's a lot more in the pipeline with the dollar strength to come yet. So the dollar is still, as I've said the other day, is still the world reserve currency. When there's any trouble in the world, people run to the dollar. And I think that's still going to happen for the time being. There's nowhere else for people to go. And that, I do agree that Bitcoin will shine and crypto will shine and will become that digital gold in the future. But before that happens, people at the moment are going to be running to the US dollar. And that's why I do see more dollar strength ahead, most likely. And we'll look, I probably won't go through all these because I'll keep it shorter. I'm just going to go through one of the chart after this, I think. Which will look at the relationship. I think it's this next chart here. And the pound, by the way, I'm saying is going to go to less than 1-to-1 against the dollar. So we went to 103. I think the pound is going to go below the dollar. So the dollar is going to be bigger than the pound. I believe this 2024, it's going to happen. So, that's, you've probably heard it first here.
You heard it here first, folks. Matt Dixon on Money in the Morning. The dollar is going to be more valuable than the pound in 2024.
Yep. So, quote me on it. So here's quite an interesting one. Love this chart. This is actually looking at the dollar index, which is the dollar against a basket of currencies, the main one being the euro, but a basket of other currencies, the dollar. So basically, it's the strength of the dollar. And I've got on the chart below Bitcoin. And so we can see pretty much an inverse correlation here. So what we're saying is that when the dollar goes up in value, Bitcoin generally goes down in value. And although it's not a perfect inverse relationship, it is a reasonably strong relationship. It isn't perfect because sometimes it breaks, but overall you can see long term, you can see here we got some sort of decline in the dollar here, and we got a general incline in the in Bitcoin. And we're still bouncing around the lows when we got the first high on Bitcoin, which was, remember that 65,000. We're near the all-time high there, and that was actually showing pretty much a real low in the dollar. So they're inversely correlated. So when you see strength in the dollar, like we saw here, that's when we saw the FTX low in Bitcoin. So we saw that 15,300 low, and that was correlated at the same time as we saw the strength in the dollar. Now, at the moment, we're actually seeing direct correlation between the two, but I don't believe that will hold because long term, we do see that inverse correlation. So at the moment, we're seeing a bit of dollar weakness, and we're actually seeing, well, actually, it's not so bad because short term, we're seeing a little bit of dollar weakness. If we looked on those charts, we'll see dollars a little bit weaker at the moment, and we're seeing some Bitcoin strength. As Bruce said, we're seeing a bit of a tick up in the cryptos, and certainly over the Christmas period, if you look over that period, we saw a really good run up. But I do think that if you look at the wave counts here, so just look at the dollar here, we've got a 1, 2, 3, we're working on a wave 4, and we'll get a wave 5 to the upside. So if we're going to say dollar is going up, that means crypto is going down. So you've got to try and think differently to the crowd. Everybody's talking crypto up short term. I think short term, we may be due a little bit of a pullback, a bit more of a pullback. So that could be driven by geopolitical. We've got all those tensions we talked about. It could be, things to do with the election coming up. It could be to do with economics, about what's happening with interest rates. So there could be many reasons that drive this market, but waves don't lie. And the waves are telling us that we're heading up on US dollar. That means we're probably heading down short term on cryptocurrencies. And that's the end of that. But I probably would be wrong not to speak on Bitcoin, on Litecoin, because Bruce is crazy about Litecoin.
Because, well, I mean, it's doing so well. And I do like Litecoin. You're right. I always have.
Well, this is, bear in mind, I'm looking at a daily chart here. So this is long term. Short term, we're actually on a nice little run up. And on my chart yesterday, I showed that we are actually still within an upward channel. And whilst we're in an upward channel, trend is your friend, and don't go against the trend, because at the moment we're still on an uptrend, and we're seeing a nice little pump on Litecoin, and it's still trending higher. That's on the short-term chart, but this is a long-term chart, very compressed candles on the daily, and it's telling us that potentially we have more downside to come, because we've had an A down,
You think
a B up,
you
and
hit
we're-
something? There you go.
yeah, something towards a C wave to the downside. So whilst short term, we've still got that trend in our favor. So hold on to those long positions, but protect them. Protect your profits. And I know Bruce will be in profit here because he loves Litecoin. It's pumped beautifully of late. But just protect some of those profits. So no matter what happens, you'll end up with a profit, because the charts are telling us that we are due a bit of a pullback. So that's my summary for today. And let's get back in for some discussion around it, Bruce and David.
Well, yeah, it is pretty interesting, right? Because we have this historical. Well, there's a number of what we call the macro events, right? We have, of course, it is an election year, like you mentioned. So two things. We'll take them both out of the box. But number one is we have the halvening, right? So about every it's actually almost every 4.5 years, but I understand why they say 4 years, because it's less than 4.5 years, but it's in between there. We have the supply halvening, and of course the miners and everybody, it always, you get the supply squeeze, and then the price goes up. Now, it doesn't always happen when you think it's going to happen. I will say that sometimes it happens afterwards more, and you're sitting there waiting. It's supposed to pump. This is supposed to pump. It's supposed to pump, and it doesn't pump yet. And you're sitting there and waiting. So we have that in play as we come in here, and of course, like we always say, the charts don't lie. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting, something that we have in play as well, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin halving happens every 210,000 blocks. And that's why we don't know precisely when it is, because obviously it depends on the Bitcoin activity and how many blocks. So it's approximately every 4.5 years. We don't know exactly. It depends when that 210,000th block takes place. We had Litecoin halving only, fairly recently. And following the Litecoin halving, the price of Litecoin dropped. So it's not a precise correlation again. Nothing is, otherwise investing would be just too easy. There'd be no need for this program. So we need to just, be aware of these halving events, that what it means is there'll be less Bitcoin in supply because the rewards for the mining are halved. So, that means just there's going to be less Bitcoin in circulation, or less Bitcoin supply. And that basically means, unlike the fiat currencies we've talked about, the dollar printing like crazy, but all the other currencies in the world printing like crazy as well. Whereas Bitcoin, it's virtually, because of the lost Bitcoin and so on, that happens because people like Bruce the other day told us lost his wallet or something. That happens. So it means Bitcoins and other cryptos go out of existence. So overall, Bitcoin is probably deflationary. So unlike the other cryptos, which are inflationary, massively so, and that's why Bitcoin can and probably will be at some point in the future an amazing safe haven for people. So, but we don't know where the bottom of the prices are, which is why I said yesterday, dollar cost averaging. Interesting, we still say dollar cost averaging because dollar is, as I say, that world reserve currency. And that's where the dollar is kind of the safe haven where we price everything against everything in the world. I mean, the Chinese and the Iranians have tried to move away from the dollar, and the Russians have tried to move away from the dollar, but they're not being very successful because it is still the world reserve currency, and everything is priced against it. So same with crypto; it's all priced against the dollar. So yeah, I do think that we're going to see more dollar strength despite the problems in the money printing. They can print money when they're the reserve currency. They can print money, but it's just when there's a loss of confidence, that's when things will change. At the moment, there is no loss of confidence. The American economy is actually looking pretty good. We talked about jobs, and was it Janet Yellen? You said there's not high enough unemployment yet. Well, actually, the employment figures out of the US are some of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. They've got very, very high employment. I know some people say they're rigging the figures a little bit, but even so, employment figures are really robust. Growth figures are still quite robust. Inflation figures, yes, they're too high, 3.1%. It needs to be 2%. But they seem to have pivoted on interest rates. So in general, things are looking pretty good. So I do think that there are surprises always around the corner, though. So I think that we're due for a surprise. And that's why I think, whilst everybody is talking about bull runs, being bullish, buy this, that, and the other, just there's two sides to every story. And I think we need to be aware and just be positioned on that risk-reward strategy to be careful.
Well, and that kind of leads right into it's an election year, right? And so it's one of those things. Like, so is the current administration, with all of the power that they have, I mean, they obviously have their reins on the power. I mean, you could argue that Trump never really took the reins of power as he could, but this administration really knows how to take the reins of power. Obviously, I mean, and so are they going to let the economy go down? Are they going to let that happen? Especially when, with their partnership with the Fed and the other ways that they can, get the money into the economy and do these things, are they going to let the economy crash? And you have to sit there as a person that's in the know and be like, well, they're probably not going to let it crash. It's probably not going to crash, and they're going to do whatever they need to do in order to keep that going. And so election years are kind of like that. And actually, if you remember, during the last election cycle, everything pumped to infinity as well. I mean, the stocks pumped, crypto pumped, everything was pumping. And so that's pretty interesting. Now, as well, I was watching the crude oil and actually gold actually was low. It's down. And so that's pretty interesting. Well, I think they're going to keep the prices of crude oil down because that's overall good for people. People don't want to pay a lot for gas at the pump.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they are heavily in control of events around the world, what's going on, even with the conflicts around the world. As you say, it's a big arms business, so it's in their interest to maintain conflicts sometimes. And, being very cynical, that is what happens. But I think at some point, whilst they do control things, there are some things a little bit outside of their control. I mean, I know we had that COVID crisis. I'm not quite sure how much that played into their plans. I really don't know. But we saw that certainly played havoc, outwardly anyway, as far as we were concerned, played havoc with world economies and what was going on around the world. And you never know what black swan event there might be, which could be outside of their control. So yes, they will manipulate things because they want everything to be hunky-dory coming up into the election. That obviously they're going to manage things in the best way possible. And we're seeing the setup for that. They've got these interest rates. They're saying interest rates are probably going to stay where they are for the first half of 2024, and then they're going to drop them for the second half. So that would again play into this thesis you have of the a nice run up to the election with lowering of interest rates that should boost risk assets, etc., etc. Yes. But as I say, men like to think they're in control. Governments like to think they're in control, but there are black swan events, and I think there's I think there are powers bigger than us that actually control events and we do the best that we can to control things, and government will do what they can, but they're not ultimately powerful. They're not all powerful. They're quite powerful.
Well, that's it's a really good point, and I absolutely agree with you. There's there's people that are controlling things on a larger scale and an understanding. I mean, even just look at our migration. The migration, it's in Europe as well. I mean, that's one of the main reasons for Brexit. But our borders just I mean, you at this point. You can't say anything other than it's just very porous at the best. I mean, we had something like 19,000 apprehended over the Christmas holiday, and that's 19,000 apprehended, guys. Those are the ones that came and turned themselves in. Okay, all right, hey, I'm here. Let me register and say that I'm here. That doesn't include. I mean, there's got to be at least, I would say, double. I mean, I don't know. But I would say that there's a lot that there's to say, hey, I'm not going to register. But glad to be here, guys. But, I'm not going to register right now. Maybe I'll register later. So that influx as well. And, of course, that affects elections, too. You have a new group of people that come in. And, we say, oh, they're coming in illegally. But the fact of the matter is, as soon as they come in and claim asylum, they're not illegal anymore. They now have legal status here in the United States. And it's like that throughout the West. I'm sure it's like that in the UK as well. So pretty interesting, things that we have going on. A lot of macro events that are affecting the markets. I continue to think that the inflation is going to continue to rise at a higher rate than what they want. And so
I'll put you guys on the spot. I'll put both of you on the spot. What do you think could be the big unexpected event of 2024? I'll give my thoughts as well, but just give you a moment to think. I mean, I'll tell you what I think the big unexpected event of 2024 will be.
Okay.
Unfortunately, well, probably I'm best let you go, and then maybe you've already got it in mind, so I don't want to take away yours. If you can think.
All right, I'll go here real quick. I'm gonna stop that because we're on TV, but it's Russia getting very much involved in a world war. We have U.S. largest military in the world, Russia right behind us, and you have India now sending their warships into the Arabian Sea, and China just sitting there, probably pulling the strings, right? So that's my big thing. I mean, I think if a nuclear attack, which is not out of the realm of possibility, that would be definitely a black swan event. As well, just look at, let's face it. I mean, we haven't lost a warship, the U.S. or the UK. What if we lose an aircraft carrier? I mean,
I hope David has a more positive one than that. David's always positive. I want to hear David.
I was going to say my black swan event will be that inflation becomes, as it goes up, Bitcoin is going to hit 100,000. So
thank you, David.
I think that's definitely possible for 2024.
I trust you, David, to come out with something positive, and I'm beginning to learn that I trust you, Bruce, to come out. But hopefully you're both right in some ways. Well, I say hopefully because we don't want to see world conflict, of course, at all. And I'm a little bit on the worried side, a little bit worried that Bruce might be right, that we see some of these loose bits, unconnected bits at the moment joining together. So you mentioned about Russia getting involved in a wider conflict. And I think actually Russia may become more involved in the Middle East conflicts because we see the alignment between Russia, Iran, and some of those rogue nations roundabout. So I think that's a potential concern. And the other concern, of course, would be, and he mentioned it, didn't he, about potentially China taking back Taiwan, they believe is theirs. And they say that could happen this coming year. And all of these things could be what they call not just a black swan, but a perfect storm of black swans. And that would be potentially horrendous for risk assets. But as I say, and as I think David could be right here, that with all these problems, and don't forget, if these problems happen, you talked about oil coming down. If these problems happen, oil will go through the roof, because most of the world's oil goes through the Persian Gulf, and in that sort of region. Even Israel has become a major supplier now. They actually took over and supplied a lot of the gas to Europe when Russia stopped the supply, or were stopped supplying Europe. It actually came from Israel, because Israel now have some of the largest gas fields and oil they're finding in the world. And so they're becoming of major interest to world powers like Russia, because if you control the Middle East, you control energy. And I know America is somewhat self-sufficient now because of all the fracking and so on that they did, and amazing advances in oil extraction. But even so, the world supply still comes largely out of the Middle East, what with Saudi Arabia, and now, as I say, Israel becoming a major supplier, going through Egypt. So these now become really important geopolitically. It's really the sort of center of the world. And so that's where we need to keep our focus. But with all these problems going on, and as I say, if that happens, oil will go through the roof, inflation will go through the roof. And the only way for them to deal with these issues, I know they don't want to be printing money when they've got inflation, but they want to be stimulating the economy, and maybe they'll be printing, and maybe that's the time that Bitcoin takes off. So I think you're both right, but I hope more for David's scenario. I don't want to see all this trouble in the world, but it's a possibility.
It is a possibility. And so far, I have been I don't want to say if I want to impressed, but I have been relieved at the response over there. I think it could have been a lot worse. Russia in general could be responding a lot more heavy-handed than they are. I'm not going to praise anybody at the point, but I'm very happy to see that now. Not being said that there's not horrible death over there, because there is. It's people don't talk about it. It's more I don't know if entertaining is the right word, but the Middle East is much more, maybe it's galvanizing or polarizing for people, and so they look at that and they say, "Oh, I didn't see this over in the Ukraine," but I mean, well, guys, there's a lot of death over there, unfortunately. Yeah. So
the thing you have to be aware of is, the most dangerous animal is a cornered animal, and
right.
Russia, they're being pushed and pushed, and Russia cannot and will not want to lose or back down in any way. So once they're cornered, we saw that attack on potentially on the Russian ship yesterday, or was it the day before?
That was the video I just played. That was that.
Yeah.
That was the.
So surprisingly, there's not been a major Russian response as yet. But if they keep getting pushed and pushed, and I'm not attributing blame to any side. We as far as we're aware, Russia were the aggressors here. But even so, even being the aggressors, as they're pushed and being like a cornered animal, they can lash out very, very aggressively. And I understand they did actually enable some of their nuclear silos or something recently, didn't they? I heard news about that. So that is worrying. 2024 is going to be an interesting year, to say the least.
It is. It is going to be interesting. I'm sure we'll be seeing you around the world. We've been invited to now multiple different conferences, kind of out of nowhere. People are noticing what we're doing, Matt. So I think that's going to be really good for both of our businesses. We're going to go through, as you know, we do this every morning, guys. We're live in Texas at 5 a.m. So thanks for joining us there in Texas live. That's pretty awesome. And then, of course, we stream around the world on Networks Managers, my Twitter. David is Sir David Porter. Matt Dixon is MD Trade. And, of course, we have our respective companies, Eve.io, Global Boost Media. And you can also watch us on impact.live, but we're going to be doing a lot of different things. And really, it's always a pleasure, Matt, to have you on. And we'll do it again tomorrow. And I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what we'll have. We'll have
pleasure to be here, and it's good just to discuss some of those difficult issues that sometimes people don't want to discuss. But we're open, and it's good to explore what's going on. But thank you. Great to be here. See you tomorrow. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
So I'm going to play right now a video. It's an interview with Nick Spanos and I did. David was there behind the camera. We have enough time. At 3:39, I have to do something here, but I'm on top of it. Okay, I'm going to play that now. Let me just load it up here because this is a historical interview, and we talk about a lot of the stuff going on in the world. Nick Spanos, Toronto. Boom. All right, here we are. Okay, I'm going to hold on here. I'm going to share this beautiful background as well that we have on here. I'm going to share this, and then we're going to wrap it up. But it's a very short, or not that short, but pretty short, just a few minutes long, historical interview with the great Nick Spanos. Nick Spanos is a Bitcoin pioneer. He's a tech pioneer. He worked with Ron Paul on his campaign. He was Rand Paul's campaign manager. This guy has done more stuff. He's done motorcades for the Pope. He is a grand dragon extraordinaire in the Greek church. He's got all kinds of stuff that most of us don't even understand. The great Nick Spanos, queued up here for you, my friends. Let's go.
And we are live outside of the Rebel Entertainment Complex. We've been killing it today. What an amazing event that they put on. It's our first time to Toronto. It has been really something else. Vitalik on stage before. There's some really big names in the space. And speaking of big names in the space, I pulled over Nick Spanos, the one and only. I mean, I'm super excited about it. So Nick, I don't have to explain him, but he started the Bitcoin Center in New York. I think there's one in Miami as well, most recently. He's working with Congress on the taxes for Bitcoin. So Nick, tell me a little bit about what you got going on right now and what brought you here to the Futurist Conference.
Oh my God. Yeah, we do a lot of things. Just trying to squeeze everything into every moment and, help the momentum that we have and make sure that, we accelerate to our inevitable, incredible future. So I'll do whatever.
Yeah. Well, so it really is cool. So let's talk about the Bitcoin Center in New York. How long has it been open? And are you guys having an event there soon?
Well, we opened in 2013.
Okay.
And it was 100 feet from the New York Stock Exchange. And on the ground floor, we had 6,000 square feet of space.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people there trading and stuff. And, I think we ushered in a new era. Emboldened a lot of people to believe in the Bitcoin, and especially, these Wall Street characters.
Wall Street character.
And, we're doing that, trying to do it all over the world.
Yeah, you are. I know we'll be together, I believe, in Dubai, maybe in Vienna as well. We'll see. And now the Bitcoin Center in Miami, you guys did just have your launch event, right?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It went great. I mean, we had hundreds of people, and everyone's very excited. And it's just like, it feels like the old days, where, people felt freedom. Like in New York, once that license came out and stuff, people disappeared pretty much, But down in Miami, everyone's very excited, hyper excited. Even the mayor, the mayor showed up. And, he said very positive things about Bitcoin itself. So not just blockchain or whatever. They said Bitcoin. And I believe that at least for a few years until they try to stop it, if they can, we're gonna reign over the entirety. Like we should.
With Nick in the lead, guys. That's exactly what we're going to do. So tell me a little bit about the work with Congress. I know I commented on your post the other day.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting. I know there's taxable events and everything else. Who are you working with, if you don't mind? And how's that going?
Congressmen and senators that we're working with, and there's a bill, Congressman Bud, it's regarding the like-kind exchange. So that means if you buy Bitcoin and you made a whole bunch of money, and then you bought Litecoin and you lost all that amount of money, you still have to pay the taxes on the money you made with Bitcoin. Let's say you're at zero. and you bought some, you were up $1 million, and then you bought something else and it went down to practically nothing, and you lost that million. Well, guess what? You owe taxes on $1 million, even though you don't have a dollar to your name.
Right.
So you owe $300,000 of taxes, and you don't own anything.
Yeah.
So that's the like kind exchange problem that's happening, and they sent out 10,000 regular mail letters to everyone that signed up with a certain exchange, who gave all the information out, and what are they gonna do? They want all that money and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of us got into it for other reasons, ideological reasons.
Right.
Some of us from the libertarian sect of society got into it for ideological reasons when it wasn't worth anything. Everyone thought we were crazy, but maybe we are. But that might mean everyone else is crazier.
It might mean that everybody else is crazier. I know it is. It's been a wild ride. I mean, that's for sure. And it is amazing that the types of characters, including yourself, that it has brought together. Friends, of course, the President Pitt from Lieberland. Of course, Ross Perot. I wish I was friends with. Maybe one day I'll meet and interview him. But these guys that are really changing the outcome of the world, and I feel like that's some of what you're doing in DC. So we really appreciate it. It's amazing
It
stuff.
has to happen. If we don't do it, they're going to find little tiny ways to destroy us. Or lock us up or something. That's the tools they have.
And it is crazy in New York right now. It really is what they're doing.
That's all we do is fill out papers for the bid license. We have a provisional bid license.
Okay.
All we do is they ask us for different stuff once a week.
It's like you need lawyers just to answer all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
millions of dollars for what?
I can only imagine.
For what? I don't even know for what. Sometimes I always have to finish what I started. And once I said I don't care what happens, as long as Bitcoin wins, I'll sleep on a park bench the rest of my life with a big smile on my face. So I should have maybe not said that. But things, you got to choose your words wisely, and fight the good fight. We have only a few moments on this planet. There's never been an opportunity like this before for us to be able to free people from the chains of centralization, and it's never going to happen again, because if we don't free ourselves with the permissionless, open blockchain, decentralized blockchain, they're going to imprison us with the closed, permissioned, centralized blockchain. I mean, look what's happening in China. We only have a few months maybe to push it in a way that, someone said that when an idea has come, its time has come, not even an army or whatever could stop it. And but there are armies to stop this, and we have to fight and perpetuate what we found out to be the truth, because there are other outfits out there trying to pitch their crap as the truth, and people are like, but you know what? I don't want to say Facebook, so I'm not going to say Facebook. I'm not going to say it. But outfits like Facebook, we got their chief data scientist holding the light right there. That's Hamdan Azar, former chief data scientist. People, that what happened with that is it opened up a lot of eyes, and so people are ready. People who were not ready before, when they heard Facebook's going to do it, they're ready for Bitcoin now. And it's our job to go out there and force feed it to everyone we can find. And whoever knows a politician, force feed it to the politician and the politician's kids, and that's it. And if we don't do that, we're done. That's the reality. There's no other reality. If we don't do this, it's over.
It's about grabbing the moment, and he's absolutely correct. I don't even have to say he's correct. We all know it, guys. And when you see it and you see the way that we can do it, you have to go for it. And I really appreciate you doing it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Nick Spanos. All right. We'll see you soon.
Nick is the man.
He really is unbelievable. He's the man. Guys, thank you so much for joining in again in Texas and throughout the world. We do this every morning, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.